I didn't sleep last night, or if I did, it was the kind of sleep that feels like falling through a hole instead of resting. One moment, I was staring at the cracked ceiling of the apartment I could no longer afford, and the next, sunlight was leaking through blinds I no longer had the right to stand behind. My key, now useless, was in my pocket, heavy, in a way that had nothing to do with weight. It felt like failure, like metal shaped into regret. I didn't think the first day would feel like this. I imagined panic, shaking hands, maybe some dramatic breakdown on the sidewalk. Instead, there was just a dull buzzing in my head as I looked back once, then pulled the door shut and walked away from the only place I'd called home in years. Funny how the world doesn't pause for you. People still rushed to work, cars honked, someone was yelling at someone else for parking wrong. And there I was, carrying a backpack with half my life in it, and the part of me that was supposed to scream or cry or do something dramatic just stayed quiet. Maybe shock is generous, numbness is more accurate. I headed toward the river first, partly because it felt like the direction a homeless guy should walk, partly because I had nowhere else in mind. Everyone I could call was either someone I'd already disappointed or someone who'd give me that voice, the one with pity mixed with, "I told you so." I'd rather sleep on concrete than hear that right now. The air near the river was cold and wet, like the morning had teeth. I kept tightening the straps on my backpack, even though it didn't help. The first thing I noticed was how different the city looks when you're not going anywhere, when you're not rushing to a job or an errand or a meeting. You start seeing things you shouldn't see. People watching you, people avoiding watching you, people walking around you just a little too widely, like they know before you fully do that you don't belong to their version of the day anymore. I passed a bench with an older guy sitting on it, gray beard, two jackets layered awkwardly, a cart next to him filled with plastic bags that clinked softly every time he shifted. He stared out at the water like it was speaking to him. Maybe it was. I didn't think I'd say anything. But he glanced at me with these sharp blue eyes, and before I could look away, he said, "First night's the hardest." I froze. Had he read my mind? How did he know? "How'd you know?" I asked. He shrugged like it wasn't worth explaining. "The way you're holding your bag, like if you let go, you'll disappear." I hadn't realized I was gripping the strap like a rope. I loosened my hand. "Yeah, first day actually." He didn't say congratulations or condolences, just nodded. "Name's Clay." I told him mine, Hubert, though everyone just calls me Huby, and he nodded again, like he'd already guessed that too. "Have you had some food already?" he asked. I hadn't, but hunger was buried under everything else, like it was hiding. "No. There's a church on Maple that gives out sandwiches around noon. You should go early. They run out." I almost said thanks, almost walked away, but something about him made me ask, "How long have you been out here?" He scratched his beard. Long enough to stop counting, not long enough to stop hoping. He glanced at me again. "Don't let the city make you invisible, Huby. First it ignores you, then it swallows you." Before I could respond, he looked back at the river, conversation over as abruptly as it began. I walked away with his words stuck to me like cold wind. I killed the next hour wandering. Walking is something you suddenly do a lot when you don't have anywhere to be, or when you're trying not to look like someone with nowhere to go. I saw two cops questioning a guy near a bus stop, their hands hovering near their belts. A woman yelled into her phone at a cab driver who pretended not to understand. A kid on a bike cut through traffic like he wanted to die or didn't believe he could. I wondered how long it would take before I blended into the background the way Clay said. By noon, I found the church. A line had already formed, people who looked tired in different ways. Some talked to themselves. Some argued loudly with no one. Some stared straight ahead like they were imagining entire lives behind their eyes. A woman with a red scarf stood near the entrance, handing out paper cups of lukewarm coffee. She gave one to me but didn't ask questions, which I was grateful for. Her eyes were kind, though. The kind that sees more than you want them to. When I finally reached the front, they handed me a brown paper bag, peanut butter sandwich, a bruised apple, a small bottle of water. It felt like something a kindergarten teacher might pack, except it tasted like survival. I ate it sitting against the side of the building, watching the line slowly shrink. A few people glared at each other. A few laughed. A few traded items like prisoners making deals. Someone sat down beside me, uncomfortably close. I turned and saw a young guy, maybe 20, with patchy stubble, and a hoodie that had once been white, but now looked like old newspaper. He grinned at me with the kind of grin that didn't reach his eyes. "You knew?" he asked. It was starting to bother me how many people could tell. "Yeah," I said cautiously. He nodded, picked at the edge of his sleeve. "You sleeping alone tonight?" I didn't answer right away. Something about the way he asked it made my shoulders tense. "Why?" He shrugged, still smiling. "Just asking. First night and all. Bad things happen if you pick the wrong place." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with weather. "I'll figure it out." His grin widened. "Sure you will." He stood, dusted off his pants, even though the dirt only smeared more. "Name's Finch. People call me that because I'm quick." He winked, like that was supposed to mean something good. "If you need help, look for me. I know things." Then he walked away, hands in his pockets, shoulders bouncing like someone who enjoyed being unpredictable. I didn't like him, not because he seemed dangerous, though he did, but because he seemed to enjoy that you thought he might be. The afternoon dragged after that, and there was nothing to do but keep walking. Every place I stopped felt wrong, too exposed, too quiet, too many people, too few. A police officer stared at me a little too long while I sat at a bus stop, so I moved. A couple across the street whispered when I stood outside a convenience store trying to warm my hands on the air coming from the vent, so I moved again. I didn't realize how exhausting it was to simply exist in public with nowhere to belong. As evening approached, the city changed. Shadows stretched. People moved faster. Streetlights flickered awake. The edges of buildings got sharper, and every alley felt like a throat waiting to swallow someone. My phone battery was down to 18%. I didn't want to waste it. Tonight might require light, or a call, or I didn't know. Something. Around sunset, I returned to the river. Clay was gone. Or maybe he was never really there. Maybe I'd imagined the only person today who didn't look at me like I was a problem. The spot where he'd sat was empty, except for a crushed soda can and footprints leading toward the underpass. I stared at the water reflecting the lights from the city. My first night homeless. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a place. I didn't even know the rules yet. Where you can sleep without getting kicked awake by police. Where someone might steal your bag. Where someone might stab you just because they felt like it. The cold was creeping in fast. I needed to find somewhere, anywhere, to get through the night. That's when I heard it. A scream. Sharp, close, coming from under the bridge. Then another sound. Something heavy crashing, followed by a voice whispering urgently, "Help! Please! Someone!" My whole body went cold. I looked toward the sound, and for a moment, I thought I saw a shadow moving unnaturally, like someone dragging something, or someone deeper into the dark. I didn't know if it was Clay, or Finch, or a stranger, or something else entirely. But I knew one thing. Whatever was happening under that bridge, it wasn't meant to be witnessed, and someone was waiting for me to decide whether to run toward it or turn away and survive my first night by pretending I heard nothing. I took one step forward, and then the voice whispered again, closer this time. "Huby?" For a second I thought I imagined it. The way my name slid out of the dark made the hairs on my arms stand up. I swallowed, my throat painfully dry, and took another step under the bridge. The light from the street lamps died. Quickly here. The sounds of the city faded too, replaced by drips of water and the distant rumble of traffic overhead. My eyes adjusted slowly. The concrete pillars rose up like thick gray trees, covered in old graffiti, shapes and words that looked like warnings in some forgotten language. "Hello," I said, barely louder than a whisper. "Who's there?" There was movement to my left. a scrape like shoes dragging against rough concrete. Then I saw him. Clay was on the ground, half propped against a pillar. One of his jackets was pulled halfway off his shoulder, and his cart was knocked over. Bags spilled everywhere. In the dim light, I could see a dark smear on his forehead. "Clay," I breathed, rushing over. "What happened?" He blinked slowly, eyes refocusing like it took effort. "Knew you'd come," he muttered. "That scream was you?" I asked, glancing around for whoever had done this. "Who did this?" He grimaced, winced when he moved. "Don't shout. Sound carries weird under here." I forced myself to lower my voice, heart still hammering. "Who did this?" I repeated. He shifted, revealing a rip in his sleeve and a bruise already blooming on his cheek. "Couple of kids. Thought I had something worth taking." He let out a humorless laugh that turned into a cough. "Joke's on them." The overturned cart, the scattered bags, this looked like more than just kids. "Did they take anything?" "Just dignity." He paused. "And my blanket. A blanket. Out here. That was everything." "Why'd you call me?" I asked softly. His eyes met mine, sharp again for a moment. "Because you're new. And I didn't want tonight to be the first thing you learned about this life from the wrong teacher." Something shifted in the dark behind us. I turned quickly, and that's when I saw him. Finch stood a few meters away, half in shadow, hands tucked into his pockets like he'd been out for a casual stroll. The grin was gone. His face was blank, eyes flat. "Told you bad things happen if you pick the wrong place," he said. My stomach twisted. "Were you with them?" I asked. He tilted his head. "If I was, you think I'd admit it?" Clay made a low sound, not quite a word. Finch glanced at him briefly, then back at me. I heard the commotion, came to see if our new friend survived his first test. "Test?" I repeated. "He got jumped." Finch shrugged. "People get jumped. Cops sweep. Drunks throw bottles. Rich kids come down here and treat us like we're props in their little thrill ride. You either learn fast or you don't." The way he said it made it impossible to tell which side he'd been on tonight. My heart was still hammering, my mind racing. I didn't know the rules, but I knew one. Don't show how scared you are. "So what now?" I asked, forcing my voice steady. "Just leave him here." Finch looked back at Clay. For a moment, something almost human crossed his face. Then it was gone. "There's a shelter on 12th, he said. "They'll patch him up if he doesn't mouth off. But they don't like people like me." "What does that mean?" I asked. He smiled thinly. "Let's just say I burned some bridges." Clay grabbed my wrist suddenly, his grip surprisingly strong. "Don't go to 12th, he rasped. "They're full. They turn you away late. You'll waste your night and your hope." I didn't know who to believe. Finch with his half-truths and warnings, or Clay with his bruises and quiet conviction. "Then where?" I asked. "Where do we take you?" Clay's eyes fluttered shut for a second, then opened again. "I'll manage. Not my first beating." He squeezed my wrist once more. "You worry about yourself. First night is about survival, not heroism." "I'm not leaving you here," I said. The word surprised me as much as him. I'd lost almost everything, and now I was insisting on protecting someone I'd just met. Finch watched us, unreadable. "You're burning daylight," he said. "Security starts making rounds near the fancy Riverside apartments soon. You don't want to be standing around looking guilty when they roll by." I looked at Clay. "Can you walk?" He nodded faintly, slowly. I slung his arm over my shoulder, feeling the weight of him. He was lighter than I expected, like life itself had been eating away at him. "Where?" I asked. He jerked his chin toward the deeper shadows. "There's a spot further down. Old maintenance alcove, out of sight. I'll rest there." We moved together, each step careful. Finch followed at a distance, hands still in his pockets, sneakers making almost no sound. "You know," he said casually, "most people would take advantage right now. New guy with a bag that's probably got his last valuables. Distracted because he's playing nurse. Most people?" I asked. breathing hard from the effort. He smiled. I said most. We reached the alcove, a recessed section of wall partially blocked by a rusted metal gate that hung crookedly off one hinge. Clay sank down with a grunt, leaning back against the concrete. He nodded in satisfaction. Here, good enough. I crouched in front of him. You sure you'll be okay? He studied me. You're asking the wrong question. Okay, I said, frustrated. What's the right question? The right question, he said slowly, is where are you going to sleep tonight, now that you know what waits in the dark? I didn't have an answer. Finch stepped closer, eyes glinting. I might know a place, he said. Not free, though. Nothing's free out here. There's always a price. Clay's gaze hardened. Be careful who you owe, Huby. Relax, old man, Finch said. I'm not stupid enough to do business with someone who can't pay me back. He looked at me again, and I had the uncomfortable feeling he was measuring. Me, weighing what I might be worth. My backpack suddenly felt heavier on my shoulders. What do you want? I asked. He shrugged. A little loyalty. Share of whatever you get. Info, cash, food. You stick near me, I show you the safe corners, the routines, the people you don't talk to. In return, you don't stab me in the back, and I don't let the city swallow you whole. Fair trade. Clay made a sound like a warning. Parasites always call themselves guides, but it wasn't like I had a list of options. The sky outside the underpass was growing darker by the second. The wind was picking up. The idea of wandering alone, blind, through unfamiliar streets all night. I hated how tempting Finch's offer sounded. Your choice, Finch said lightly, but if you say no now, don't come looking for me later when things get bad. He took a few steps backward, melted almost seamlessly into the shadows. I'll be at the loading dock behind the old supermarket on Grant, he said. There's a dry spot there if you know where to look. If you show up, I'll know your answer. Then he was gone, footsteps fading into the hum of the city. I sat there with Clay for a while, watching his breathing even out, the worst of the shock fading from his eyes. This life will test you, he murmured. Some tests are about hunger, some about fear, some about the kind of person you are when no one's watching. His gaze sharpened. Tonight might be all three. What would you do? I asked. He smiled weakly. Doesn't matter what I do. You're not me. He paused. Just remember, first night sets the tone. The deals you make now echo for a long time. I looked toward where Finch had disappeared, then back at Clay. The city groaned quietly above us, as if listening. I stood slowly, heart pounding, the weight of my first real decision out here pressing down on me. The loading dock on Grant, or wandering alone into the dark. I adjusted my backpack strap, took a breath that tasted like rust and river water, and stepped out from under the bridge, heading toward a choice I already knew I couldn't undo. The walk to Grant felt longer than it probably was. Night had settled in fully now, and the city had changed masks again. The office workers and shoppers were gone. In their place came the crews that only came out after dark. Delivery drivers, people in hoodies moving like they didn't want to be seen, couples stumbling out of bars, laughing too loudly. Every shadow looked like it might move. I kept one hand on my backpack strap and the other in my pocket, fingers wrapped around my useless key. I told myself it was just a habit, not some desperate attempt to hold on to the life I'd already lost. The old supermarket loomed up ahead, a giant block of darkness with boarded-up windows and faded letters still clinging to the facade. The parking lot lights were dead. Weeds grew through cracks in the asphalt. The whole place looked abandoned, forgotten by everyone except the kind of people who needed forgotten places. My footsteps echoed as I crossed the empty lot. Every sound seemed too loud, my shoes scuffing, my breath, the distant sirens somewhere far away. The loading dock was at the back, a raised platform with a metal roof and a couple of big garage doors tagged with graffiti. For a moment, I thought Finch had lied. Then I saw it, a dim orange glow coming from a corner of the dock, half hidden by stacked wooden pallets. As I got closer, I realized it was from a tiny fire contained in a metal bucket, shapes clustered around it. 3 people, hunched like moths around a weak flame. Finch was sitting on an overturned crate, hands held out toward the heat. He looked up as I approached, his grin returning like it had been waiting. "Knew you'd come," he said. One of the other figures turned to look at me. A woman in her 30s maybe, with short dark hair and a coat that was too thin for the weather. Her eyes swept over me quickly, taking in the backpack, the worn shoes, the way I stood. "Fresh," she said. "Smells like indoor air." The third person, a skinny guy with sunken cheeks, laughed quietly without humor. "Finch bringing in recruits now?" Finch held up a hand. "Relax, he's on his first night. Thought he'd prefer not freezing to death under a bridge." I swallowed, suddenly aware of how outnumbered I was. "If this is a problem, I can leave," I said. The woman studied me for a long moment, then shook her head. "Nay, problem would be leaving you wandering around out there. Cops sweep this area hard when the bars close. They see a lone guy with a bag. They'll assume you're dealing or worse. Or they'll just move you on for the sport of it," the skinny guy added. The woman nodded at me. "I'm Lena, that's Mark. You already met Finch. Lucky you." "Huby," I said. Lena scooted over on the piece of cardboard she was sitting on, making a little more space. "Rule 1, she said. "Keep your stuff between you and the wall when you sleep, no matter how nice people seem." "Comforting," I muttered. "Comfort's expensive out here," she said. "We deal in realism." Finch tossed me a folded piece of cardboard. "For the floor. Concrete eats heat." I stared at it, then at him. "What's the price?" He smiled, almost offended. "Who says everything costs something?" "You did," I reminded him. He shrugged. "Call it an investment. Night's just starting. Plenty of time for deals." I unfolded the cardboard and laid it down near the wall, where I could still feel some of the bucket's heat. My body already ached from walking, from adrenaline, from stress I didn't have a name for. Sitting felt like a small defeat and a small victory at the same time. Lena handed me half of a crushed protein bar. "Eat," she said. "You won't sleep anyway, but at least you won't lie. They're hungry. You don't have to." "I know," she cut in. "It's half of a terrible protein bar, not a kidney. Take it." I took it. It tasted like chalk, and chemicals, and gratitude. The 4 of us sat in a rough circle. For a while, no one spoke. The fire crackled weakly. Somewhere in the distance, a bottle shattered. A car alarm whooped once, and then cut off like someone had smacked it into silence. "You from here?" Mark asked suddenly, eyes fixed on the flame. "Sort of," I said. "Been here a few years." "What did you do before this?" Lena asked. The question hit harder than I expected. I hesitated. "Does it matter?" "It matters to you," she said. "Might as well say it out loud, once before it becomes something you never talk about." I stared at the fire. I had a job, desk, computer, that kind of thing. I wasn't important. Turns out that made it easy to erase me. "Office ghost," Finch said. "I can see it." "What about you?" I asked. He grinned. "I've always been exactly who I look like." Lena smirked. "We don't give him biographical questions after dark. Inflates his ego." I should have felt more afraid. Instead, sitting there in the flickering light, surrounded by 3 strangers who'd already shared more with me than most people I'd known for years, I felt something else. The thin edge of belonging. Fragile, conditional, but real. "Here's another rule," Lena said. "Never sleep with your headphones in. You need your ears out here more than your dreams." "I don't have headphones," I said. "Good," Mark muttered. "One less thing for someone to steal." The night stretched. The air grew colder, pushing closer under my clothes. My fingers burned from the cold even when I held them near the fire. At some point, Mark lay down and pulled his jacket over his face. Lena shifted, curling up like she'd done this 1,000 times. Finch remained upright, watching the darkness more than the fire. "You going to sleep?" he asked me quietly. "Can you?" I asked back. He shrugged. "Sometimes. Depends what I'm listening for." "What are we listening for tonight?" I asked. Not sure I wanted the answer. He considered. "Security rounds. Engines stopping where they shouldn't. Drunks trying to prove they're brave by messing with people who have nothing left to lose. Footsteps that are too light or too heavy. I listened. For a moment, all I heard was my own breathing. Then the night slowly filled in. A distant siren, the hum of a main road, a dog barking far away, someone laughing too loudly and then coughing. "Did you know they beat up Clay?" I asked suddenly. Finch didn't look surprised. "That old man under the bridge?" "Yeah," he nodded once. "He's been through worse." That's not an answer. He glanced at me. "Out here you can't save everyone. You start trying, you end up with nothing and no one. Saved, including yourself." "I'm not trying to save everyone," I said. "Just someone who helped me for no reason." He studied me. "That's the most dangerous kind," he said. "People who do things for no reason. Harder to predict." I thought of Clay's warning about deals, about parasites calling themselves guides. "What about you?" I asked. "What do you get out of this? Letting me stay here?" He smiled slowly. "Maybe I like you. Maybe I think you'll be useful. Maybe I don't like sleeping where people scream all night." Or, he tilted his head, "Maybe I'm curious what you'll do when things go wrong." The way he said it made my stomach tighten. "What's going to go wrong?" He didn't answer. Instead, he froze suddenly, head cocked. "Hear that?" I held my breath. At first, I heard nothing. Then, a faint crunch of gravel. Another. Footsteps getting closer. Multiple sets. Slow, deliberate. Lena sat up instantly, every trace of sleep gone from her face. Mark pushed his jacket off, blinking hard. Finch's relaxed posture vanished. He moved without sound, stepping in front of the fire, body angled as if to block it from view. "Pack your stuff," Lena hissed at me. "Now!" My hands fumbled with my backpack straps. "Who is it?" I whispered. "Could be security," Mark said. "Could be worse." The footsteps grew louder, echoing in the empty loading area. Whoever it was, they weren't trying to be quiet. My heart pounded against my ribs, like it wanted out. "Stay behind us," Lena muttered quietly but firmly. "And no matter what they say, don't act brave. Brave gets you hurt." A shadow stretched across the edge of the loading dock. Then another. Voices, low and male, laughing about something I couldn't make out. The sound of something metallic being dragged across asphalt. Finch glanced back at me once, and for the first time since I'd met him, there was no smile, no game in his eyes, just calculation. "Welcome to your first real night, Huby," he said under his breath. Then the first figure stepped into the weak circle of firelight, and I realized with a jolt that I recognized the jacket he was wearing. It was Clay's. My blood turned to ice. The man wearing it looked nothing like Clay. Taller, broader, smirking like he'd just won a prize in a cruel game. Behind him, two more shadows climbed onto the dock, carrying something heavy between them. In the flicker of the flame, I saw what it was. My breath caught. It wasn't a something. It was someone. And as the three of them turned fully into the light, I realized with a sinking, terrible certainty, this night was about to get much worse. And tomorrow, day 2, might not be something all of us reached,